Here are 7 things you need to know before moving to Brookhaven, Georgia. One of the first things you should know is that Brookhaven is in DeKalb County and it's right next to the city of Atlanta. Very often people kind of think of Brookhaven as being a suburb of Atlanta, which could be the case. I guess you could think of Brookhaven as a suburb, but most of the suburbs of Atlanta are kind of like outside of the perimeter, outside of Interstate 285. So they tend to be a 15 to 30-minute drive from the big city, or maybe a 45-minute drive to Atlanta. So Brookhaven being right next to the city of Atlanta is a huge plus for living in this area. In addition to that, even though it is within the perimeter and it's right next to Atlanta, it's not part of Fulton County. It's part of the higher property tax paying DeKalb County. So quite a bit of a difference between those two counties. Some other cities that are part of DeKalb County would be like Lithonia or Stone Mountain. These are all kind of on the east part of Metro Atlanta. But there's no question that Brookhaven is like the gem of DeKalb County, maybe even the gem of Metro Atlanta. It's certainly one of the most beautiful suburbs of Metro Atlanta, and there are so many people who want to live in Brookhaven because of how amazing of a city it is. One of the main roads that runs through this city is Peachtree Road. This is kind of like the main artery of this city. This is where you're going to find a lot of the commercial areas. There are a few neighborhoods off of Peachtree Road, a few parks also. So Peachtree Road is kind of like the main way that you would get north and south through Brookhaven. The second thing that you should know about living in Brookhaven is that not only does Peachtree Road go north and south through Brookhaven, but so does the train and MARTA, which is the public transportation system. If you're thinking about moving to Brookhaven, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. I'm so thankful for everybody who has reached out asking me about living in Atlanta. I'm more than happy to help with your moving needs to the Metro Atlanta area. But this train and public transportation MARTA line that goes through Brookhaven just feels very out of place. When you're here in the city, you start to see how beautiful the city is and how well kept the city is. And MARTA doesn't quite fit the Brookhaven feel. It's kind of like, dare I say, a scar through the city of Brookhaven. It just looks very different, especially the train and the train tracks that go right along MARTA. It just has a different vibe than you would expect from the rest of the city. This is important because if you plan on living in this city, it's a great area to live, but you don't want to be too close to the train railroad tracks or like the MARTA line. This would be a very different feel. So not something that you want to live very close to. The third thing that you should know about living in Brookhaven is the general vibe of this area. Again, it's kind of a suburban feel to it. You don't really see a lot of the high-rise buildings like you would in downtown Atlanta or in Midtown. They're not surrounding Brookhaven. They're not right there in the middle of Brookhaven. You can see them off in the distance, but you're not like surrounded by it. Like when you're walking down the street, you're not going to be walking next to high-rise buildings. You're going to be walking along normally sized buildings. It's much more like a suburban area. It's a quieter town. There are a lot of families who live in this area. There are also a lot of people who live in Brookhaven who are just wanting to be close to Atlanta. Again, Atlanta is so close, you could even argue it's walking distance. So if you lived in Brookhaven and worked in Atlanta, it's totally possible that you could walk to an area like Buckhead for work. But unlike some of the other suburbs like Marietta or Suwanee, Brookhaven has a bit more of an urban feel to it. It's not quite as of a small town as some of the other suburbs. It's kind of a mix of the two. It's a mix of the urban feel of Atlanta and a suburban feel of the suburbs like Suwanee or Marietta. So it has a really good mix if you don't want to be super far out. You know, if you kind of feel like these suburbs like Alpharetta or Milton are too quiet of a town, then Brookhaven would be a great compromise. You would be able to get some of that urban Atlanta feel, but still have that suburban feel that you would get from a quiet town. Also, when it comes to racial diversity, this is something that you certainly can find in Brookhaven because of its proximity to Atlanta. And then the other thing, when we're talking about the vibe of Brookhaven, you should know that the people who live in Brookhaven love their area, love their city. There's certainly a lot of community involvement in Brookhaven because there is a lot of pride for that area. So it's very easy to build relationships, build community in Brookhaven because the people who live there want to be neighborly. They want to be kind of different from Atlanta, which is maybe not so neighborly. So finding that community is much easier in Brookhaven than it is in the city of Atlanta. The fourth thing that you should know about living in Brookhaven is that the median sold price in this area is about $900,000, with homes as low as $500,000 and as high as $2 million. So the cost of living in this city is certainly a bit higher than some of the other parts of Metro Atlanta. Let's take a look at a few of the homes that I found on Zillow that are for sale in Brookhaven. 3290 Dunlop Court is a 3-bed, 3-bath home, and they're currently asking $879,000. And 1376 Windsor Parkway is a 4-bed, 4-bath home with about 3,100 square feet, and they're asking $989,000. So right away you can see that this is not really the suburb or the city where you're going to get a lot of home for your money. One of the biggest draws of living here is the proximity to Atlanta, not the size of the homes. So certainly a different kind of lifestyle in Brookhaven than you would find in the outer suburbs of Metro Atlanta. Now this price tag, this average $900,000, is really mostly for single family residence homes, detached homes. When we talk about condos, it's a bit different in Brookhaven. For condos, you're looking at between $300,000 and $600,000 for a condo in Brookhaven. So very big difference between those two. The fifth thing that you should know about when it comes to living in Brookhaven is that there is lots of parks and green space in this city. As we've said many times on this channel before, Atlanta is often described as being a city in the woods or a city in the forest, and that's because that's exactly what it was. It was built in the woods. It was built in the forest. So there are so many trees everywhere all around the city, and this allows for lots of parks and green space, and Brookhaven is no different. Within the city of Brookhaven, there's Brookhaven Country Club, Brookhaven Park, Linwood Park, and Murphy Candler Park. Number 6, when it comes to things that you should know about living in Brookhaven, is that there really isn't like a town center. There's not a city hall in Brookhaven like many of these other suburbs, but there still is plenty of shopping. Town Brookhaven, which is off of Peachtree Road, is kind of like one of the main shopping areas of Brookhaven. This is where you're going to find a lot of the shops and restaurants. There's also a Publix there in town Brookhaven. I believe there's a Sam's or Costco or something like that, one of the big kind of grocery stores also right there in town Brookhaven or adjacent to town Brookhaven. But all around this area of town Brookhaven is lots of commercial areas. And then if you can't find what you're looking for in town Brookhaven, again, Peachtree Road has a lot of commercial areas all up and down this road. This is where you're going to find the majority of the commercial areas in Brookhaven. And number 7, when it comes to the things that you need to know when you're going to live in Brookhaven, is that there are some downsides to living in this city. While it is a great city and it's got a lot of benefits and there are a lot of reasons why people want to live in Brookhaven, there certainly are some setbacks, some drawbacks when it comes to living in Brookhaven. If you want a full list of the pros and the cons of living in Brookhaven, check out this video. I'll see you there.